I never thought I'd see the day when my own son, the boy I raised, fed, clothed, and loved, would look me in the eye and tell me I wasn't responsible enough to manage my own money. But that's exactly what happened. Imagine sitting across from your child, hearing them suggest taking over your finances because they don't trust your decisions. Would you hand them control? Or would you show them just how much they underestimated you? Tell me, what would you have done if your own son tried to take away your independence? It started about 3 years ago, after my husband passed away. We had been married for 42 years. He was my partner in every sense of the word. Steady, kind, and a bit old-fashioned when it came to money. We saved diligently, invested carefully, and by the time we retired, we had built a comfortable nest egg. After he passed, everything, our house, our savings, our investments, was in my name. I wasn't rich, but I was secure. That security, however, became the very thing that drove my son Ethan to do what he did. Ethan was my oldest. He was always the ambitious one. As a child, he was bright and sharp-tongued, always wanting to prove himself. I admired that fire in him. He worked hard, got a degree in business, and eventually started his own company. I was proud of him. My younger daughter, Lily, was different, calmer, more empathetic. She became a teacher and never cared much for money. Ethan, though, always had this hunger. The kind that doesn't go away even after success. After my husband's death, Ethan began calling more often. At first, I was touched. He'd check in on me, ask if I was eating well, how I was sleeping, whether I was lonely. But gradually his questions shifted. He started asking about my finances, how much money I had saved, what kind of insurance policies I held, what my monthly expenses were. He'd phrase it casually, like, "Mom, I just want to make sure you're taken care of." I didn't think much of it at first. But over time, the tone changed. One Sunday, he came over with his wife, Julia. We were having tea in the living room when he brought out a folder. "Mom," he said, in that serious tone that always made me sit up straighter, "I've been thinking about your finances. You're handling a lot on your own, and I just want to help you manage it better." He slid the folder toward me. It was full of papers, some of them legal documents. "If you let me take over your accounts, I can invest your savings, make sure your bills are paid on time, and you won't have to worry about a thing." I remember feeling this strange chill run through me. I asked, "Are you saying I can't handle my own money?" He laughed awkwardly. "No, Mom, of course not. It's just, well, you're getting older. Mistakes can happen. Scammers target people your age. I'm just trying to protect you." Julia nodded, like they'd rehearsed this speech. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the way he said, "your age," stung. I was 71, yes, but I was still sharp. I managed all our accounts myself, balanced the books every month, even handled some small investments. I wasn't frail or forgetful. Yet, he was looking at me as if I was already halfway to losing my mind. I told him I'd think about it. He looked disappointed, almost irritated. But he didn't push it that day. After they left, I sat in silence, staring at that folder on my coffee table. Something about it didn't sit right. I opened it up and started reading through the documents. My heart sank when I realized what they were. Papers that would have made Ethan my financial guardian. It would have given him full access to my bank accounts, my property, everything. I would have essentially handed over control of my entire life. I called Lily the next morning. When I told her what Ethan had asked, she was furious. "Mom, don't you dare sign anything. He's out of line." But I tried to calm her down. I said maybe he just meant well. She sighed and said, "You always give him the benefit of the doubt. You've done it since we were kids." She wasn't wrong. Ethan had always been my husband's favorite, and after he passed, I think I felt a responsibility to hold the family together, to not alienate my son, no matter what. Over the next few weeks, Ethan kept bringing it up. Subtly at first, asking if I'd thought more about his offer, suggesting that managing finances could be stressful at my age. But when I kept dodging the topic, his tone changed. He began implying that I wasn't being realistic. Once, during dinner, he even said, "Mom, you're lucky I care enough to step in now." Most people your age get taken advantage of because they don't listen to their kids. That line stung more than I can explain. He wasn't talking to me like a son talks to his mother. He was talking like a man who already believed he owned me. I started feeling uneasy whenever he visited. I noticed little things too. How he'd glance at the mail on my table, or how Julia would casually ask about my will. It all felt strategic. Then, one day, he crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I went to the bank to withdraw some cash for groceries, and the teller informed me that there was a note on my account. A restriction requiring joint authorization for any withdrawal over a certain amount. I was confused. I had never set such a thing. When I asked who added it, the teller said my son had contacted the bank, claiming to be acting on my behalf. I was livid. I called him immediately. He didn't even sound apologetic. "Mom, I told you I'd help you manage things. You're not being practical. I just added a safeguard." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I said, "Ethan, you don't have the right to touch my accounts." And he replied, calm as ever, "If you'd just let me take over officially, we wouldn't be having this problem." That was it for me. That was the moment I realized he didn't just want to help. He wanted control. I hung up the phone, shaking with anger and hurt. How could my own son, my flesh and blood, treat me like I was some burden he needed to manage? I thought of my husband. How disappointed he would be if he saw what Ethan had become. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the fireplace, and made a decision. If my son wanted to test me, I'd show him just how capable I still was. Before I tell you what I did next, I want to ask you something. If your child, someone you raised, started trying to take control of your life like that, what would you do? Would you confront them directly, or would you quietly teach them a lesson they'd never forget? Because that's exactly the choice I had to make. Let me know in the comments before I tell you what happened next. Alright, so here's what I did. I called my lawyer. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman I'd known for years. I explained everything to her. Ethan's attempts to access my accounts, his pressure, the documents he tried to get me to sign. She listened carefully and said, "You need to protect yourself legally, immediately." We spent the next few weeks quietly restructuring my finances. I moved a large portion of my savings into a private trust, one that only I could access. Then, I updated my will, splitting my estate unequally. Lily would receive the majority, and Ethan, well, he wouldn't be left with much. But the twist was, he wouldn't find out until it was too late. To make it even better, I set up a small test. I told Ethan that I had recently sold one of our old investments and had deposited a considerable sum, about $300,000, into my checking account. I let that information slip during a casual lunch. His eyes lit up, though he tried to hide it. I could practically see the wheels turning in his head. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my bank manager, who said there had been an attempt to move a $50,000 from my account to another under Ethan's name. I smiled. That was exactly what I'd been expecting. You see, their account I told him about didn't actually contain real money. It was one of the dummy accounts my lawyer and I had set up for this exact purpose. Every transaction on it was monitored. The moment he tried to touch it, I got an alert. I didn't call him immediately. I wanted to give him time to think he'd gotten away with it. Sure enough, the next time he came over, he was overly polite, bringing flowers, complimenting me, acting like the perfect son. I played along. We had tea, we talked about Lily, and he told me how proud he was of me for being open about my finances. I smiled the entire time, knowing exactly what he had done. A few days later, I asked him to meet me and Julia for dinner. We went to a nice restaurant, his choice, of course. Midway through the meal, I calmly slid a folder across the table. "Ethan," I said, "I know about the transfer." His face went pale instantly. "Mom, I don't know what you mean." I cut him off. "Don't lie to me. I have the bank records. I also have the lawyer's documentation of the trust, which means every cent you thought you could touch is legally protected." Julia looked horrified. She whispered his name under her breath, but he just sat there frozen. I continued, "You wanted control, Ethan. You thought I was weak. But I've spent my entire life building this family, and protecting what's ours. And I'll be damned if I let my own son rob me under the guise of helping. He started to apologize, muttering something about misunderstanding and just wanting to make sure things were safe. I told him, "No, Ethan, you wanted power, and now you've lost my trust." I stood up, handed him a copy of my updated will, and said, "This is what your actions have earned you." His face turned red when he saw that his inheritance had been reduced to almost nothing. Julia burst into tears and whispered, "How could you do this?" Ethan didn't respond. He just sat there, jaw tight, eyes darting around the table, realizing the gravity of what he'd done. I left them sitting there and walked out, feeling both heartbroken and strangely free. After that night, Ethan didn't speak to me for months. He tried reaching out once, sending a text saying he'd made a mistake, that he didn't mean to hurt me. But the truth was, I couldn't trust him anymore. Lily, on the other hand, stood by me the entire time. She told me she was proud of me for finally standing up for myself. She even started visiting more often, helping me around the house, not because she wanted anything, but because she cared. It's been over a year now. Ethan and I have started talking again slowly. He's different, quieter, more reflective. I think losing my trust shook him in a way nothing else could. I haven't restored his share of the inheritance, and I don't plan to. Some lessons need to be permanent. Looking back, I don't regret how I handled it. It hurt, yes. No mother wants to see her child driven by greed. But sometimes love isn't about giving. It's about protecting yourself from being used. I raised my son to be strong, but I never imagined he'd try to use that strength against me. Still, I hope one day he truly understands what he lost. Not just the money, but the bond that used to mean more than any bank account ever could. So, what do you think? Was I right to set him up and teach him that lesson? Or did I go too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you were on my side through all of this, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories like this one, and share your thoughts about what you would have done differently. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.